back with another video on the Miami Hurricanes Football Vision YouTube channel. I'm your host, Juice. And of course, we have our matchup with the Gators this week. And in fact, as of publishing of this video, 2 to maybe 3 hours before kickoff, but I wanted to get this particular video out there because I thought there were several keys to the game. And of course, that's what we're talking about here. The keys to the game for Miami to get this win against the Florida Gators. The Gators obviously coming off a pair of losses in their last couple of games. We talked about the USF matchup from the perspective of USF, since USF was Miami's last opponent. But most recently, the Gators lost to LSU, and it did not look good for DJ Lagway in that offense. Defense played pretty well, but the offense really struggled. They struggled mightily. So I want to talk a little bit about last year's contest as it relates to what we'll see this year. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what I see on tape from Lagway and that Gators offense and areas to exploit. If we wind the clock back to 2024, obviously the matchup with the Gators, we were on the road this year, obviously playing at Hard Rock Stadium. There was a lack of appreciation for Cam Ward, I think, nationally at this point, right? I personally was very familiar with Cam Ward because I am a football degenerate. I watched Pac-12 After Dark. I watched Cam Ward go toe-to-toe with Penix and Caleb Williams and so on and so forth out there in the Pac-12, and had an appreciation for how good he was, how talented of a quarterback he was. The biggest difference with him coming to Miami and what I learned about him was his incredible leadership ability and his tenacity and his competitive spirit, which I think, coupled with his natural talent and work ethic, is what vaulted him to being the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But as it relates to the team itself, what I anticipated, and I think this is the part where most did not necessarily put 2 and 2 together. When I say most, I'm not talking about Canes fans. I'm talking about those on the periphery, was that Cam Ward was going to play behind the best offensive line he had ever played behind in his football career, let alone, his travels from Incarnate Word to Wazoo, Washington State, and then ultimately in Miami. Miami, that is one area that Mario Cristobal has done a tremendous job, along with Alex Mirabal, just making sure that up front, that group up front is a position of strength, that we have depth, and we've continued to get better during the course of Mario Cristobal's tenure. So with that, we then got an opportunity to see what Cam Ward did. And when I look back on this particular contest, it was really Ward just surgically attacking the Gators defense. The Gators have talent on the defensive side of the ball, I think, particularly along the defensive line. Now, going into this game tonight, I think they're down a few starters, which does not bode well for UF. I don't think it would make a difference, to be honest with you, considering how poorly they're playing on the offensive side of the ball. But I think it really compounds issues, considering the fact that Miami is a bit of a ball control offense. We run the ball about 54% of the time. We are very physical up front. And without a quality rotation along your defensive line, those guys can get worn down, which is going to generate bigger plays, explosives in the running game. It's going to create more time in terms of being able to push the football down the field with Carson Beck and those receivers. So that really bodes well for us as Hurricanes fans in this particular matchup. And as part of this particular game, UF's offense did not look particularly good. And as I mentioned earlier, it still doesn't look good. And I think some of that has to do, a great deal of that has to do with the coaching staff, Billy Napier, just kind of being a bit hard-headed as it relates to his approach. And then DJ Lagway is not playing well. I think he certainly missed some time during the offseason, a young quarterback, and he's not seeing the field well. He's not even playing quarterback, really, truly in its essence. He's throwing the football. He's not actually playing the quarterback position. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by that as we take a look at the matchup and the keys, really the keys, how this game will play out and how Miami will get this win. First things first, as it relates to this matchup, and I mentioned the fact that going into this matchup with the Gators, the strength on strength with Miami's offensive line versus their defensive line, led by Caleb Banks. I think Caleb Banks is a really talented player. I don't expect him to play in this game. And I think they're missing, again, as I mentioned, a couple of other players within that defensive line rotation. That does not bode well against how well our offensive line has played and continues to play. I think we have a dominant group once again, not unlike last season, perhaps even better this year. And that swings the pendulum significantly in our favor. I think when you talk about game plan from an offensive perspective, I don't expect Miami to do much differently than they have done throughout the season to this point. We're going to be physical. We're going to run the football. We're going to get the ball, spread the ball around to the various playmakers, and control the line of scrimmage, control time of possession, lean on folks. Then we get the explosive. Then we start to kind of separate as the game progresses. That's kind of my thought process here. No significant insight as it relates to the offensive side of the ball. I think what intrigues me a bit more is what we have done defensively this year. Complete turnaround compared to last season. And I'm going to do a more comprehensive evaluation of how we've played over the course of the first 4 games. We have a bye week next week. So I'll really take it from cradle to grave as it relates to this team and how we're playing and the questions that have been answered, certainly. But coming back to this particular matchup, I think as long as Miami controls number 13, Jordan Baugh, the running back for the Florida Gators, I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. They have a very tough schedule. They're coming off some losses. Their quarterback's not playing well. I imagine they're going to want to run the football and shorten the game. I mentioned the fact that they're missing bodies on the defensive side of the ball. Well, how do we counteract that? If we're at a disadvantage from that perspective, time of possession is going to be key, right? Being able to run the football effectively is going to be key. Miami has done a tremendous job this year in terms of stopping the run, allowing fewer than 3 yards per carry. So we're playing on the opponent's side of the line of scrimmage, and we want to continue to see that. Baugh certainly has ability, but assuming we can control him, I don't think that Florida's offense is going to pose much of a threat. So I expect the Florida Gators to get number 13 involved early and often, whether it be carries or short passes, extensions of the running game, getting him in space, letting him, use his speed, his power, his vision in order to create yardage after the catch. Better run blocking team at this juncture as compared to their pass protection. So I expect a heavy dosage of number 13. To this point, the Gators have gotten away from him in the last couple of games, and it's cost them. The defense has kept them in games. They've been close enough. It's never been a situation where they had to abandon the run, but for whatever reason, coaching, they've gotten away from number 13, and of course, it's put them in a precarious situation and led to the last 2 losses here. And again, as I mentioned, you just more Jordan Baugh involvement, just getting the ball in his hands, however they possibly can. You'll actually see him motion out of the backfield and split out wide. They actually like that matchup when a linebacker goes out there with him in man coverage. But if you can control 13, I think Miami probably wins this one going away. All right, I want to rewind this one so we can dive into the first of the 5 INTs that DJ Lagway threw in this game against LSU. And the reality here is that Lagway just like I said before, is not playing the quarterback position. He's throwing the football. He's staring down receivers. He's leading defensive backs and linebackers directly to where he's going with the football. He's not moving anybody with his eyes, not using any head movement. He's not working through progressions. So right now, he's at a juncture where I have to see it in order to throw it. And he's telling the defensive backs, Bryce Fitzgerald, I'm sure you're listening out there. He's showing and demonstrating exactly where he wants to go with the ball. He's telegraphing it. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to make plays on the football in this game. All right, we're going to get another look at this from the end zone cam. And you'll just see, you'll notice the positioning of his head and then ultimately his eyes, and just leading the defenders exactly where the ball is going. There's 3 guys there. There's 3 white shirts there. That's a terrible decision. And you see this time and again. And it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon among young quarterbacks. They have a tendency to hold the ball too long or need to be able to see it before they deliver it. So, like I said, there are going to be opportunities there. Again, Jordan Baugh slipped behind the defense, a bit of a breakdown there. This one actually came back due to a hold. Another areas that I think that the Gators have struggled this year, penalties. Penalties have come back to bite them. That's at least 3 touchdowns this season, at least 3 that I've seen on film call back for an offensive penalty, a hold. So generate pressure, move Lagway off his spot. It's just a question as to whether or not the refs are actually going to call it. That's the biggest question. Miami Hurricanes fans, if you know, you know. We don't get that flag often in terms of holds, so we'll see how that works out. Again, them working the ball, finding ways to create a little bit of a misdirection here. You see the motion one way all of the action going back the other way and getting the ball to Jordan Baugh in space. I think that is the basis of their game. I did not see a lot of RPO quarterback run in this particular contest. I think we will. I think they're going to try to simplify things for DJ Lagway because he's not seeing the field well. And you could tell on this play, once again, just staring down the receiver, not seeing the safety drive on this throw that's late over the middle. Another poor decision. Once again, he's leading you exactly where he's going with the football because he's not playing with any anticipation. He's not understanding what the defense is actually doing. LSU didn't do anything crazy here, right? They played a healthy dosage of zone. Again, Miami is much more capable of playing zone this year. They're more assignment sound from that perspective. When a quarterback is struggling to read things out and effectively see what's going on in defense, understand what the defense is trying to do to them, what you want to do is just put more defenders out there for him to have to try to decipher, right? They're trying to use motion to get the defense to ultimately out themselves, right? They're trying to use motion to dictate to the defense to make a determination as to whether or not they're in man or zone, right? Which should help paint the picture, make it clearer for the quarterback. But even with the answers to the test, and there were instances where it was clearly zone based on a motion or clearly man based on that motion, Lagway didn't seem to understand where he needed to go with the football. So creating consternation among the offensive line as far as whom they need to protect or which direction they need to slide the protection. I saw that rear its ugly head several times on tape as well. And I put that on quarterback and center. They didn't understand how to slide protection in order to eliminate, a corner blitz or to pick up a green dog linebacker or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot that they're trying to put on DJ Lagway's plate, but he's not ready. And I think Miami obviously can take advantage of that. Here's the third INT, if I'm not mistaken. Again, watch his head. Immediately goes to where he wants to go with the football. He doesn't see that defender working underneath, and it's a pick going the other way. If Billy Napier and crew look at this film and say, okay, we need to help our young quarterback, what I would expect them to do is continue to do that pre-snap motion to help make the picture clear. I wouldn't expect a whole lot of empty set. I would not expect a lot of empty. Assuming they're trying to actually help their quarterback because he's struggling in that particular regard. There's Baugh again making a guy miss, just demonstrating what he's capable of. Another bad throw there, almost picked off. But let me pause it for just a second here. What I would expect them to do is really simplify things, right? As I mentioned, lead with the running game. The Gators have two backs led by Baugh that I think are capable backs. It'll be tough sledding against our front seven and the way our secondary is coming up and run support. But I think that's where they have to start. And then play action off of that. RPOs, run pass options, simplify things. Again, you saw some of those swing passes to Baugh. I think you could expect to see that. Some misdirection to try to out leverage, scheme it up. They're going to have to scheme it up because they're not executing in the drop back game at a high enough level in order to do so certainly as frequently as they did in this particular contest. I mentioned the fact that they keep getting away from Baugh. I think he only had 10 carries in this game, right? And the Gators were never down by more than 2 scores, despite the fact that Lagway threw 5 INTs. So certainly something to keep an eye on and see how that plays out. Let's see this next snap here. All right, once again, staring it down, and the corner almost makes the play. The corner drives on this, and then I want to go back just a second. Actually, you can see it here from the end zone camera on the right side of your screen. Maybe not. Maybe we have to go back to the all 22. So as we look at the bottom of the screen, it's another example of Lagway, obviously turning his head and eyes to where he wants to go with the football immediately, right? Just kind of tipping his hand. Now, it is a quick slant. The timing associated with that, you would expect that to some degree, but I think part of the issue here, and this is what I get back to saying that he's not quarterbacking, right? He's just throwing the football right now, is this corner is going to give a little bit of a cushion and watch him work an inside leverage. So you're trying to throw a slant despite the fact that the corner has eyes on the quarterback and he has inside leverage. You can't go here with this football. You simply cannot go there with the football. Now, it's easy for me to say that because this is a split-second decision, but these are the types of things, and like I said, these are the types of opportunities that I think the Canes, DBs, linebackers, so on and so forth, will have an opportunity to turn the football, get the ball back to Carson Beck, and the offense. We get back to leaning on that depleted defensive line with our big offensive line and our running game. And then, of course, we go up top to the CJ Daniels and Joshua Moores of the world. Hopefully we get Jojo Trader involved. I'm hearing that he's back healthy, so we'll see about that. And then, of course, this last INT, I'll say this: it would be a special throw with a too high look. You got a defender underneath carrying this receiver trying to work down the seam, and again, you're not holding the safety. You're not holding the safety. In fact, both safeties break on this pass. You're just not doing a good job of manipulating the coverage with your eyes, and as a result, you're telling the defenders exactly where you're going with the ball. And to their credit, the LSU defensive backs, their credit, they've broke on the football and made plays. Right, they came away. They could have had maybe 7 INTs. There were a couple that were effectively drops in my mind. So again, I fully expect the Miami Hurricanes to win this game. I think we have a chance to win this game going away, considering all the struggles that the Gators are having on the offensive side of the ball and the fact that they are depleted defensively, assuming we come out and we execute the way we've been doing all season to this point. All right. I mentioned it earlier. I'll have more of a comprehensive review of Miami's performance throughout this season to this point for you next week. In the meantime, check out my film breakdown on Ruben Bain. Till the next time.